The history of strikerball. It all started only a few years ago with a man named Fredrickson Ali. This man was a well-known multi-sport athlete out of Virginia Tech. One of his old college buddies had an idea, a big, almost stupid one. He was on a mission to create his own sports league. Although the league didn't have a name yet, or even a standard set of rules, a few young athletes signed up to take part. Fredrickson Ali was one of them. No one could have predicted the impact that they have just made. After about a week or two, they finally had enough players to make two teams. The teams then started having practices and eventually played a few games. For now, the two teams were called Team 1 and Team 2, since it was only the testing stages of the sport, and they didn't even know if this league would be successful enough to carry on for more than a season. Back then, the rules were that the first team to score would win. At first, Team 1 was dominating. They won several games before Team 2 even scored a point, but that wouldn't last for long. Team 2's S3, Miles Sanchez, was striking in the third inning one game. That was when history was made. The ball had gone up and into the basket. Miles Sanchez had scored the team's first ever point, and since then, Team 2 started to dominate the league as if they had been doing that the whole season. It was a great underdog story. Fredrickson Ali then went on to become the league's first superstar. He carried Team 2 to win the majority of the games down the stretch of the season, and overall got the league a lot of new attention from the sports media. This season became to be known as Season 0, the season that started great things to come. By the time of that off-season, the sport had grown phenomenally quicker than anyone had ever expected. They knew that it was time for the league to finally become official, so that's what they did. They began preparing for the upcoming first official season. First, they had to come up with a fitting name for the sport. Eventually, they agreed on strikerball. Next, they had to come up with new names for Team 1 and Team 2. Team 1 was renamed as the Ballers, and Team 2 became known as the Hoopers. And lastly, they got rid of the first to score wins rule. Everyone was suited up and ready for Season 1. Season 1 was very successful and a big step up for the league and its players. There were a lot of firsts around the league. We saw Fredrickson Ali win the MVP and carry the Hoopers to their first ever championship win. We saw the brothers, Connor and Michael Hampton, surge as the best blockers in the league. We also saw the first ever trade, which consisted of Tanner Bird heading to the Hoopers in exchange for Kyle Hayward and Miles Sanchez. The Hoopers' hero was now a baller. The Ballers were now putting together a real threat of a team, and very soon, they would be getting yet another big piece to their lineup. It all started during the Season 2 draft. The Ballers had the lowest record, so they were on the clock with the first pick. They ended up taking James Donaldson, a striker out of NC State. It was a big risk to take, and no one truly knew how he would turn out. But to everyone's surprise, he couldn't be stopped that season. He won the MVP by a landslide, while also taking home the Rookie of the Year award. But that all didn't matter one night in Game 4 of the championship series. The Ballers were down by 2 in the 5th inning with their S5, Rick Burns. Ballers fans around the world were counting on him to do something to turn the game, and even the series, around. But Burns went scoreless that inning, which left the Hoopers celebrating their second straight title on Ballers turf. The Ballers had yet another upside to this all, because they again had the first overall pick. This year's draft was highly anticipated because Jeremy Hellickson, the most hyped-up prospect ever, was now eligible for the draft. Of course, he was taken first overall by the Ballers, which left Ballers fans with extremely high hopes for the upcoming season. Although the rest of the team did great,
Jeremy Hellickson was nowhere as good as he was expected to be. In fact, the third-round pick, Buster Brown, was the rookie who was turning heads instead.
he was awarded Rookie of the Year and just fell short of the MVP behind the Hoopers' Chase Dombrowski. Rick Burns now wore a Hoopers uniform but never got to play in it. He sat on the bench the entire season while watching the Hoopers win yet another championship title. During that offseason, the league decided to make two big changes. First, players would now be paid contracts and be eligible for free agency. Second of all, the league had decided that they would expand and add two new teams. These two new teams ended up being the New Brunswick Strikers and the Atlantic City Swishers. And when these two teams were signing players to fill their rosters, the Swishers went ahead and signed the worn-down Rick Burns. This wasn't that big of a move at the time, as he was originally set to play S5 for them. But he proved everyone wrong time and time again throughout every game of the season, becoming one of the favorites to win MVP and becoming the face of the Swishers franchise. He won the Most Improved Player award by going from a failed Ballers closer to a Hoopers bench warmer and finally to a superstar.